Oops. Can I start now?
Yes, whenever you want.
Dear colleagues and guests of the Congress, greetings from Kyiv National Linguistic University and Ukrainian Association of Cognitive Linguistics and Poetics, which I represent. My research lies in the frame of cognitive linguistics that studies language reflections in mental processes, while psycholinguistics focuses on the mental representations and processes that underlie people's ability to use language. Nevertheless, both deal with relationship between language and mind. Thus, my work to the great extent covers the area of interest of psycholinguistics. Today, I present my work entitled Stereotypic Hollywood in Media Production, which is a contribution to the fundamental study linguistics of contemporary media discourse, universal and ethno-specific impact, provided by Kyiv National Linguistic University and proved by Ministry of Science and Education of Ukraine. Today, I present a small part of my major work devoted to cognitive linguistic aspects of changes in socio-cultural stereotypes of American media discourse. I will be glad to draw your attention to some points of analysis that we'll conduct together. So let's start. In my work, Hollywood is regarded as a stereotype of American hedonistic lifestyle. It is the principal center of American film industry that proved to be the major global influencer in developing cinematic genres and imagery. Hollywood shows to the world a perfect life, aspiring people to find the place in American dream factory, creating and spreading stereotypes. Hollywood itself has become a stereotypic symbol of success and fame. I wonder, what is Hollywood for you? What associations you have when you hear the word Hollywood? For me, Hollywood in media representation is an object of my study. Constantly enriched by the achievements of the humanities and sciences, linguistic paradigm enrolled the terms implemented by other sciences. Such is the case of the term stereotype, which in linguistics still enjoys a marginal status despite the large number of works on stereotypes, predominantly in ethnolinguistic studies and studies of gender. In comparison with a popular term concept, which is more inclusive, stereotype determines the cultural expectations of a society to a certain category that are represented by the language. Stereotypes are cultural patterns that guide the attitude to a particular social group, thus they influence communication. Introduced in 1922 by American political scientist and journalist Walter Lippmann, the term stereotype originally meant a copy made of metal plate, which was designed by French printer Didot in 1798 to speed up the typing process. In the 18th century, the term stereotypy was used in psychiatry to denote a repetition of sequences of movements without any apparent reason. The original meaning of stability and immutability of Greek word stereos was preserved in the term stereotype. Though relatively stable, stereotypes can disappear or transform according to changes in sociocultural environment. Stereotypes do not exist separately. Sorry. Stereotypes do not exist separately, interplaying and affecting each other. They form hierarchical system. Proposed in my work, The System of Stereotypes of American Culture, grounds on stereotypical ideal American dream, which embodies cultural dominance of American society that influence formation of other sociocultural stereotypes. The division of stereotypes into two large parts, groups, abstract and specific, is conditioned by their cognitive character and cultural significance. All considered stereotypes possess abstract as well as concrete features realized in the language, but in distinguishing levels of hierarchy. I start from the premise whether a stereotype is a cultural concept or an image of a social group. Ethnic stereotypes are placed between the abstract and specific levels, as their realization in media discourse reveal utmost generalization, for example, ethnic mentality, as well as a specific knowledge, for example, of ethnic cuisine. More versatile than the rest, specific stereotypes are represented by regional stereotypes, social types, and subcultural stereotypes. My today's talk is devoted to a stereotypic symbol of a success and glory in America, Hollywood. The preliminary hypothesis of this work concerns the character and place of the stereotype Hollywood in the hierarchical system of American culture. I, I consider Hollywood as a stereotypic symbol connected with American dream of success and fame that came together with the material comforts. Hollywood is not only the place where people can realize their wish to become celebrities, but also an industry that produces and spreads various stereotypes. The aim of this work is to investigate the language evidence of stereotyping, Hollywood in media discourse, making the cognitive linguistic profile of it. Stereotyping is the process of creation and spreading stereotypes by means of mass media. To meet the aim, I need to fulfill several tasks, including collection of the linguistic material for the study and specifying the principles and key concepts of my research. The stereotypes are studied by different sciences, such as social psychology, physiology, cognitive science, as well as the humanities. Generalizing achievements in the study of stereotypes, I distinguish three main lines of investigation. The first line focuses on cognitive process involved in categorization and abstraction of social knowledge. In this view, a stereotype is a result of basic human cognitive activity connected with mental operation of detecting similarities and distinctions with already established categories. Stereotypes represent simplified and reduced information about social groups or social phenomena. The human mind works with the aid of categories. Orderly living depends on it. Dispensable to human mental activity, stereotypes function as integral part of a natural language. They are maintained and changed through language and communication. Representing the image of a group in its verbal form, a stereotype creates the center of semantic and cognitive associations. The second line of investigation points out effective attitudinal component of stereotyping. Category distinctions influence perception of and behavior toward category members, individually and collectively. Ambivalent character of a stereotype reflects duality of appraisal. This essential feature of stereotypes is described as a split between good and bad evaluation. The third line of investigation is aimed to look into a social aspect of stereotyping. The regulative function of stereotypes is an inalienable part of ethnic group operation. Viewed from this perspective, a stereotype is identification pattern that assumes membership with a certain group. People's individual characteristics and their group memberships play a significant role in shaping attitudes, values, and beliefs, evaluative and behavioral implications. These approaches lay the groundwork for my study. Let's stop on this point to decide, can we regard stereotypes cultural concepts? If not, what are the differences between them? To my mind, a cultural concept retains less biased information than a stereotype. Concepts are more versatile in their language representation. A sociocultural stereotype concentrates cultural values and guides ethnos in evaluation of cultural and social phenomena. In the language, they are displayed mostly in connotations and pragmatic predispositions. Thus, a social aspect is more important in a stereotype than in a cultural concept. So I proceed speaking about sociocultural stereotypes. Constituting a cluster of many partially overlapping approaches, cognitive linguistics grants efficient methods of study of stereotypes. Defined by Victoria Krasny's unconscious models of cognitive action, sociocultural stereotype is aimed to identify and store cumulative information about mental categories, maintained and changed through language and communication. Sociocultural stereotypes most vividly manifest themselves in connotations of lexical units, in pragmatic predispositions, and attitudes expressed in discourse. Emotionally perceived stereotypes are presented by a stable set of external and ethical characteristics. Thus, a profile of a stereotype comprises descriptors that manifest in different forms of judgments about certain attributed or denied features of stereotyped objects. The common feature of all stereotypical judgments is a covert universal generalization. Circulating in the society as shared background knowledge, stereotypes present certain unquestionable beliefs. They are stored in a collective memory in forms of scripts and frames. Presuppositions are not necessarily based on patterns of life experience. They are ratified by epistemic criteria of a community and thus considered true. These implicit assumptions are spread in the sphere of mass communication known as media discourse. Media discourse is defined by researchers as a set of processes and products of language activities of mass communication. It is an umbrella term that comprises different functional genres of mass media. Interactions in all their diversity and complexity of different functional varieties take place through a spoken or written broadcast platform. The complexity of forms of its existence makes media discourse a verbal audio-visual reality in which sociocultural stereotypes perform the roles of symbolic objects. Making sense of a social world, we resort to classify objects into different categories. It is not only a cognitive process of understanding and explaining the world around us, but it is a part of gaining semantic experience. which can be described in terms of Peirce's science theory. As the result of generalization process, categorization is called by Charles Peirce the most important operation of the mind. Processing of new information about a fragment from the social world is based on the background information coded in symbols which are inherent in our consciousness. The essential quality of a stereotype as a sign of mental activity is established through the relationship of objects of the social world. Stereotypes and their cultural assessments. In the terms of Peirce's science theory, assessments are interpretants expressed in judgments about the objects. Providing the main characteristics of the object, immediate interpretant conveys general information of a category that distinguishes it from any other. Dynamic interpretant produces actual effect which the symbol really determines. Final interpretant reflects the cultural significance of a stereotype. Extreme conventionalization of this information makes it a symbol in a definite culture. In compliance with Peirce's theory, a stereotype is a sign of a mixed nature that comprises an icon, an index, and a linguistic sign that evokes living feelings. An icon presents the object in a definite historic period. It is an image that conveys a collective view of a cultural phenomenon or a social category. An index relates to the object in a correspondence in fact. It is a sensed feature of an object, for example, the recognizable from the 1923 Hollywood land sign. Finally, the symbol of a lexical unit, the symbol is a lexical unit which evokes the images associated with a stereotype. It replaces a set of characteristics of an object and designates it in the process of cognition and communication. Thus, from the standpoint of semiotics, a stereotype is a specific sign formed in the process of generalization and reduction of social knowledge. It is characterized by the conventionality and automatism of the reproduction. Research methodology of this work is outlined by holism and functionalism. According to the principle of holism, introduced in cognitive linguistic research by Ronald Laneke, human consciousness is a holistic functional system in which the language accompanies cognition and subordinates the cognitive laws. The meaning of a stereotype refers to a categorized object of a social world, information of which is connected with a diverse and complex non-linguistic context. Thus, the study of language-represented stereotypes requires a wide sociocultural context in which stereotypes circulate. Functionalism recognizes the need to analyze language structures in communication situations. As the results of joint activity of media and an individual or a group, in discursive theory of communication of John Fiske, discourse analysis is applied. Value judgments, conclusions, and mental sets implied by the term Hollywood are explicated in media discourse. Implemented pragmatic analysis is aimed at disclosing emotional perception of the object under study in the form of inferences, implications, and associative characteristics. Focusing on language use, pragmatic analysis in the work deals with the intentions of the author, which are interpreted in the context of the text with the consideration of a cultural context. Procedures directed at decomposition and explication of characteristics facilitate the record of a cognitive linguistic profile of a stereotype. Introspection, according to Leonard Talmy, is a basic method of linguistic research. Though significant, it can be regarded ultimate and absolutely objective. To verify the results, we need to provide more objective methods in study of social phenomena represented in discourse. What are your suggestions to verify the results? My point is only experimental methods are sensitive enough to assure in-depth study. So research requires experimental work. For example, interviews, questionnaires, association tests. Of course, it is not always possible to organize. In this case, we can implement quantitative methods to verify our results, among which corpus analysis, factor analysis, and other experimental methods. Considering media discourse, Considering media discourse a sphere of mass communication that includes different functional genres, I work with newspapers, articles, popular songs, lyrics, television series. Analyzing critical essays from the newspapers of the first part of the 20th century contributes to the description of Hollywood stereotype at the stage of its formation and proliferation in American culture. Analyzed series provide a self-portrait of Hollywood as well as societal criticism and praise of it. The word that represents the stereotype of American film industry and symbol of success and fame, Hollywood, appeared in association with a specific location. Once there was a range. On the arrival to this place in 1886, it was named Hollywood by Dada Wilcox, the wife of Horace Wilcox, a real estate man. They began selling off building lots, and the village was registered under this name in 1903. By 1910, a quiet farming community was converted into movie studios. Some years after, the giant sign was set up. Originally it was Hollywoodland. The name became generic for American movies. What can you say about the origin of the term? Apparently, designation was motivated by holly, an evergreen tree or a shrub with prickly leaves. This hypothetical etymology is illustrated by the description of scenery at the beginning of the 20th century. The advantages of Hollywood cannot be excelled. Location, elevation, pure air, fine water, delightful shade, thousands of hollies, pines and oaks. In the early 20th century, Hollywood was considered a great place to live due to the beautiful nature. With the construction of film studios, the fashionable residential area where retirees from the east of the country had lived became the capital of the American film industry. Associated with the aspirations of creative people who long for success and fame, the object of aspirations and frequent visits, Hollywood, is described by the New York Tribune in 1920 as the Mecca of motion picture writers. The dream of becoming famous, rich, and successful overnight that characterizes the period of the 20s in America was a motivating reason for the influx of fame and fortune seekers to Hollywood. Already the 20s of a previous century, in the 20th of the previous century, Hollywood is perceived as a social and cultural phenomenon. It is not only the place related to movie industry, but also activities and lifestyles of people working in it. They create atmosphere of a city of free-spirited people, which is described in media discourse as gypsy settling town. Expansiveness of Hollywood points out the success of those who can afford to live there. This wonderful place is associated with paradise. However, already in this period, Hollywood is widely criticized by media for the immorality of its inhabitants, drug and alcohol abuse. With growing success of American movie industry, Hollywood increasingly attracts people aspiring to be movie stars. They were called by media would-bes, people that in their search of fame and riches very carefully copy those who have already become successful. With an appearance of a new star, these people immediately try to convert themselves into the absolute carbon copies of successful people. These transformations concern mainly appearances. The costume worn by one is practically the same as the costumes worn by all the others. Their hair tinted to common shade and dressed with the same little waves and curls, all seem to be trained down to approximately the same degree of leanness. Their masks are made up to fit the common pattern. As the real industry, Hollywood produces patterns of appearance and behavior, confidently followed by mostly women. They are stamped out on the same mode as media describes this process of standardization in 1937. It is recognized in media discourse of 1948 as a triumph of conformity and the Hollywood stereotype. Since the middle of the 20th century, the word Hollywood is perceived as a generic term covering the movie-making interests of Los Angeles and in environs. Such generalization is a characteristic of stereotyping. Hollywood is not a stereotype in itself. It incorporates other sociocultural stereotypes of professional activity related to movie industry. Such is the stereotype of a rich and powerful businessman in the sphere of film and television, movie mogul stereotype, who spends time in nightclubs and constantly changes wives. But the biggest criticism concerns Hollywood production. Devoid of originality, stock characters are stereotypes that are both disconcerting in their naivety and unenlightening in their development. Criticizing for imitation in style and production, as well as for immoral lifestyle of those who work in movie industry, printed media created a negative stereotype of Hollywood. Exemplifying mass media representation of Hollywood stereotype, the album Californication of a genuine Los Angeles rock band, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, depicts destructive power of Hollywood that spreads throughout California and the rest of the world. This process is called in a title song of the album Californication. Primarily, the term Californication emerged in the Time magazine article on hippie subculture in 1966. Californication indicated condemnation of desolate life of hippie and liberal spirit of California. Since 1972, Californication has become a popular term due to Sandra Burton, who described Californication as haphazard, mindless development of land that has already gobbled up most of the Southern California. The term was widely used in idiomatic American English in the 1980s in the states bordering California that strongly objected the formidable migration of Californians and excited California style culture. Thus, the term Californication implies negative influence on different spheres of human life. The song was estimated by researchers the most critical the Red Hot Chili Peppers works on this subject altogether. The music video features the band as characters in a video game, exploring California and seeing the bad things going on behind the scenes. The video assists in correct interpretation of lyrics of the song, which outlines the dark side of California culture and its propagation through Hollywood and its movie industry. The lyrics of the song represents an encryption of Hollywood detriment. The dream of Hollywood incites young girls to crave for fame. Objectives set by them are tried and imposed by Hollywood standards. Hollywood needs ideal bodies, celebrity skin, and blonde hair of little girls from Sweden. A well-paid plastic surgeon can help to achieve the desired everlasting beauty. Pay your surgeon very well to break the spell of aging. Hollywood dream in the song is metaphorically described as a firstborn unicorn, something which is unique, unattainable, and imaginary. However, striving to catch incredible fortune in the very place like Hollywood, ingenious girls can find themselves in hardcore softcore, made in a Hollywood basement. The reference to Kurt Cobain in the song shows that faulty temptations of fame are unsurmountable for vulnerable people. Apparently, apparently depressed by drugs, the leader of the successful Seattle band Nirvana committed suicide in 1994. Nevertheless, the Red Hot Chili Peppers are optimistic, expressing the quintessence of the song in words: destruction leads to a very rough road, but it also breeds creation. There will be other people to come to Hollywood in pursuit of fame and glory. They will live through noxious power of it that may lead them either to destruction or to the attainment of aims through constructive endeavors. The Red Hot Chili Peppers song Purple Stain from the album Californication is irony on Hollywood as blessed place in California. Knock on wood, we all stay good, 'cause we all live in Hollywood with Dracula and Darla Hood. Knock on wood is said in order to avoid the bad luck when you mention hopes you have for the future. Hollywood is the mecca of creative people, and if they achieve success there, it is regarded a real acknowledgement. It is the place where fame is reached whatever you do. playing Dracula or starting your career as a child like Darla Hood. However, the irony is the fame in Hollywood that could not save the life of celebrated actors. Thus, mentioned in the song Farley, Farley Christopher Crosby, was a comedy actor who died of an overdose of cocaine. Darla Hood, who got her fame being a child, died suddenly of a heart attack at the age of 47. Destructive power of Hollywood is exposed in Danny, California, another hit of the band that was released in 2006 as the opening track of studio album Stadium Arcadium. It is the story of a broken-hearted starlet that ran from home to Los Angeles to become an actress, but got chewed up by Hollywood that is full of temptations. A girl was born in the state of Mississippi, which is ranking low among the states in health service, education, and development. Her father was a copper and her mom was a hippie. She never knew that they were anything more than poor. Raised in an atmosphere of poverty and neglect, she committed the crime robbing a bank. Danny changed her name to California and ran away to the state that seemed to her a little brighter. She is a runner, rebel and stunner, but this did not help her to find success in Hollywood. As depicted by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Hollywood is a dream about luxuries, but a bogus world of silver screen, attracting people by fame, sex, everlasting youth, and beauty. Immediately associated with the song Californication, the Showtime series of the same name demonstrates numerous references to the songs of Red Hot Chili Peppers. There is a personage of the series whose name is Danny California. Her life story repeats that which was described in the song. A broken-hearted starlet who ran from home to Los Angeles to become an actress, but got chewed up by Hollywood. The daughter of the main personage is described as an unicorn-loving self. The similarity pattern concerns also detrimental power of Hollywood over the people in search of fame. Created by Tom Capanos, starring David Duchovny and Natasha McElhane, the show ran for 7 seasons, from 2007 to 2014. The successful series was many times nominated for and several times won the prestigious American awards. On its appearance, it caused considerable controversy. The show was criticized for attempts to poke fun at the hypocrisy and delusions of Hollywood, but was not very convincing. It was accepted as a dark character study with laughs, picturing the portrait of a man in free fall. The television series conveys a self-criticizing image of Hollywood as the center of American popular culture. Popular etymology traces the title of the series from the fusion of California and fornication. This portmanteau emphasizes sexual connotation of the word. Implied information identifies the community attitude toward the depicted in the show Hollywood lifestyle. Despite explicitly and excessively shown sex, the television drama comedy or dramedy Californication raises far more serious problems than mere sexual addiction of the main characters. It is not only the story of personality downturn, but also the outline of pressing problems of modern society. family relations, aging, drug and alcohol abuse. Sex in the show is the background and the nude fact of popularity of many Hollywood products in which partial nudity is not just expected, it's apparently required. The language of all characters is earthy and obscene. This intensifies sexual display in the show. However, the true subject isn't sex but loneliness. The central figure in the show is promiscuous and cynical hero Hank Moody. He is a promising writer from New York. When placed antagonistic for the talent atmosphere of Hollywood and corrupt temptations of Los Angeles, he experiences complete devastation. Moody's excessive sexuality, seeming buoyancy, and destructive addictions are representative for a stereotypic Angelina. He epitomizes a kind of Hollywood masculinity, which is expressed in the sexual and physical prowess of the body guy. Deliberately untidy look, black shirts and sunglasses, messy Porsche with a broken highlight he drives are attributes of Los Angeles bohemian style. Frequently used by Hank word dysfunctional relations, health, family is essential characteristic of him. Promiscuous relations, scandalous situations, alcoholism, drug addiction, and overdose contribute to frustration and self-destruction of him. Aware of his complete devastation, he persists in living such a life. He says, I am disgusted with my life and myself, but I am not unhappy about that. Women constantly fall for his tough good looks, his fascinating wit and self-awareness. He definitely possesses sex appeal. Enchanting women, he is vulnerable to Karen and their daughter, but fails to set stable relations with his beloved. The show gives the impression that stable traditional heterosexual relationship is ultimately impossible within Hollywood environment. A paradoxical character, Hank Moody, is misogynist who objectifies women that exist solely to satisfy his urges. And at the same time, he tries to understand and defend them as a devoted feminist. Innumerable sex affairs do not prevent Hank from writing. Californication is among his published books of crazy plots and memorable characters that may contribute to film interesting. At the beginning, Hollywood for Hank is the promised land of fame and wealth. It is the place where it turns out dreams actually do come true, and the place of American dream realization, as it is shown in the dialogue of Hank and his father. American dream right here. Your name's gonna be up on the screen. Or you'll be immortal. I've written a couple of books too. That's not the same. Almost at once, he understood that Hollywood businessmen, caramel-coated, chrome-domed auteurs, transform any work of literature into the craptastic crowd pleaser, which is to give millions handle. The word craptastic used by Hank Moody is a blend of the words crap, which means something of extremely poor quality, and the word fantastic, explained by one of the personages' success of low-quality Hollywood production, is due to the aggressively mediocre taste of the American movie-going public. Hollywood world of make-believe affects Los Angeles. Everything is fake. The houses like sets, the people are indistinguishable from actors. There is no place for sincerity in relations. The Beverly Hills husbands are definitely cheating, and friends not only act like they are not, only act as friends. Traditional families are rare in this environment. It's nice to see some good old-fashioned family values in this morally bankrupt city of ours. That they are the words of Hank Moody. Hank's opinion of the city changes. From the beginning, he felt the city would never be his, but later he called it gorgeous, shimmering insanity of the city of ours. Hank reflects on his loathing and simultaneous love for Los Angeles. See, this is what I love about LA. It is the diversity. Surrounding people call the city glorious, awesome, but toxic. It is no place to raise daughter, Karen says. LA changes people, but Hank justly retorts. Cities don't change people. We are who we are. Los Angeles in the series is shown as the new Babylon of the world. Apparently, almost all the characters experience detrimental influence of Los Angeles lifestyle, of which promiscuity, drug and alcohol addiction, thirst for money and fame are characteristic features. With his self-destructive attachment to the truth, Hank Moody exposes bogus people who are ranting and raving about saving the environment, paying a lot of money for fuel of their private jet planes getting down to Cabo. These people feign that they are interested in the pollution problems and raise money to support anti-pollution campaigns. The city alienates Hank Moody for he rejects anything that is untruthful for him. However, Hank has fallen a victim of the devastating influence of the city. What happened to me? I came out here from New York to fight the good fight. I lost. This city happened to me. But here I am, rotting away in the warm Californian sun. The center of Hank's detrimental universe is Hollywood, the symbol of vice, opulence, and spiritual emptiness of postmodern world. Apparently, almost all characters experience detrimental influence of Hollywood lifestyle. Sexaholic Hank's agent and friend betrayed Hank for money. Another friend suffers from drug addiction. A promiscuous nymphette stole Hank's manuscript. Even Hank's daughter, craving for writer's fame, experimented with drugs. Hank's surroundings are in hot pursuit of pleasure and sensual self-indulgence that represent hedonistic principle to gain satisfaction at any cost. They live to the morality of hedonism. Live fast, die young. Carnal pleasures motivate their behavior, as Hank says, a morning of awkwardness is far better than a night of loneliness. To satisfy the fads, they need money. Hank's agent says, you do make a decent living, and that's really good for the hedonist. Lust for pleasures sweeps away all moral barriers. Promiscuous relations, scandalous situations, alcoholism, drug addiction, avidity are all attributes of stereotypic image of Hollywood, as shown in the show Californication. Netflix production of 2020 Hollywood is called the most dishonest, delusional, self-important, and potentially destructive alternative reality TV series to be spit out by Netflix. It describes the golden age of Hollywood, spotlighting biased racial and gender stereotypes that Hollywood fortified and spread for years. Among the stereotypic images exposed in the show are Chinese American movie star Anna May Wong that struggled with being cast in stereotypical Asian roles and a gender stereotype of an incapable to run the businesswoman Ace Amberg that needed to prove her skills to produce movies. Set in the world's film capital in the late 40s of the 20th century, the show exposes evils that ruled over Tinseltown back in that day. The show centers around a plan to make a movie originally titled Pack. It is based on a real story of a girl who plunged from the Hollywoodland sign. This cautionary story about movie making cruelty has been changed into a success tale to a persistent and brave Afro-American girl, Camille Washington. On the top of her success, she reminds she was told she is free, but is not better than her grandparents who were the own property of another human being. She managed to prove a woman of color can carry the picture and be a movie star, not worse than a white actress. Hollywood in the series is a place where strong personalities can win the award. Hollywood, it's be someone and declare it. The headpiece shows the Hollywoodland sign to which the main personages climb. It is it is a metaphor of the main idea of the series that proves there is nothing impossible for those who eagerly pursue the aim. Though Hollywood exposes and examines decades-old power dynamics and stereotypes, you cannot but conceive its falsity in depiction of characters. Hollywood spreads the highly sexualized, consumer-driven version of American culture that heavily emphasizes sensual pleasures, youth, and beauty standards as the precious goals to be achieved. This refers to the pursuit of happiness as the sole and chief stimulus in person's life. Carpe diem is the very nature of the years of some pleasures that, if not obtained now, will not be available ever. Gaiety and youth became cherished properties of success. Hollywood burst into the popular consciousness all around the world with the stars flaunting their fabulous life to the public. Instantaneous wish fulfillment and surfeit with comforts compel hedonists to seek for more exciting pleasures, irrespective of their coarse or unlawful or morally wrong character, as in the case of many Hollywood celebrities. The study proved the hypothesis that Hollywood is a stereotype associated with the immorality of people in the film industry and a symbol of luxurious world that attracts by fame, riches, everlasting youth, and beauty. So, that is all. Is anybody here?
Yes, we're here.
The only one?
No, there are more people here.
Any questions, at least from you? If not, maybe we'll finish this session.
Do you maybe want to come back to the call so that people can make some? I don't know if anyone has any questions, but so that you can see people if they say something on the message.
Okay, I will show the screen.
So it appears there aren't any questions. But I just wanted to make a comment. I think it's very interesting for someone who's not American to be talking about that, because I feel like in America they still have a lot of that. In America, I mean, in the United States, many people still have that idea of the American dream, and as if
Yes,
it was
sure.
like everything everyone could want in their lives. And for example, if you're in the arts area, for example, I follow a lot of ballerinas because I like to
Mm-hmm.
watch ballet. It's like if you don't go to one of these big cities like LA or in
Mm-hmm.
Belarus, New York as well, it's like you can't be successful in your career. But also, people many times people go to LA. Many people from the movie industry go to UCLA to study filming and stuff like that, thinking they're gonna end up making like huge movies, and most of them end up on YouTube. For example, many of these YouTubers that we have now, I watch some of them that went to Los Angeles to because they wanted to be directors, and they
Mm-hmm.
ended up just being like not that it's less, but it's so different than what they wanted. So like fashion YouTubers or things like that, because they have this idea of like you either go to New York or you go to California, and if you're anywhere else, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there is the Silicon Valley as well, but if you're anywhere else, it's like you have to move because you're not in a place to be successful. And I don't agree with that. I think you can be successful uh, anywhere. You just have to be good at what you're doing.
Yes, but upward social mobility is the pattern for success in any country. People try to get success in any sphere. Why not to be a farmer and raise cows and goats and produce cheese and anything else? But still, you should move forward. That is that is not bad if you use the correct patterns of behavior and of your success.
Yeah, I agree.
Hello.
Hello.
First of all, thank you for your very interesting presentation. It was really very interesting to listen to it. And if we talk about stereotypes in American movies, yes. And as for the Russian movies, have you researched the stereotypes in Russian movies? Have you compared it?
No, no. First of all, my study entirely devoted to American culture and American media discourse. The second point, I'm Ukrainian, not Russian.
Sorry, maybe Ukrainian movies?
We don't have such kind of movies about Hollywood. That's why I cannot say anything about this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question, but I've said that the work is concentrated, is focused on entirely on the media, American media discourse.
The workshop before yours was about mass media manipulation, and I just since the professors talked about Russia, I just remembered how Hollywood had during the Cold War had a very strong role on making the showing the Sovietics side of the Cold War as like bad guys. And also nowadays I see many movies use like the mid I don't remember how you say it in English, but like Arabic people from like they place them as terrorists or just people, and I think they use this a lot to send like the message, but not explicitly. And I mean, I think it's a lot of it because of the way the industry is made, like Hollywood and the United States, and they always have like the flag of the United States and very like nationalist. I don't know if that's the right word for it.
National, why not?
Yeah. So yeah, I think that Hollywood has a big impact in that as well.
Yeah, you're right.
Does anyone have any more questions? If not, I think I'm gonna stop the recording. Yeah. Okay. Is it okay, Professor?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
What time we are supposed to finish?
We have until in Portugal time, we have until 5 o'clock, but we don't have to stay until that time. It's just for the whole event is supposed to end at the time, but most rooms have like 5 or 6 symposiums happening, and this room is just you, so it's whenever you're ready.
Okay, so we can finish now.
Yeah.
Okay. Then thank you very much for your help.